Well, welcome to the first of what we hope to be an ongoing series, monthly, of having people on the island share their stories and learn more about each other and then connect with each other. And so you're all participating in the beginning, and hopefully this is going to go on for quite a while. Sherman here is the first speaker, and we've actually got some slides here. We didn't quite get them organized well enough, so we're going to be jumping around a bit. It's all right.
It's Cortes.
Yeah.
Why would that surprise anybody? We're all jumping around here, right? That's okay.
We're video recording, and that's what's behind this stainless steel bowl.
Got it.
And I had a little bit of technology issues that I had to set up here, so forgive me for being a little bit late with this. So just a few other things here. So I expect, although it's totally unknown.
Is that too dark?
No, that's too dark. We need a little. We need that one light.
Just shine.
Just that
okay.
one.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm estimating that Sherman's talk is going to be about 45 minutes.
Ooh. This shirt here. This is from my neighbor's daughter, who's a very talented artist and has got a funding to be in a Toronto art school. So we printed these up, and it's to remind if people can just sort of like point at my shirt if you feel like I'm going down a rabbit hole, because I can do that. So when she found out about this, she sent me the note. She said, "Wear my shirt that I drew. Don't go down a rabbit hole." Okay.
Oh, so I'm going to revise that. It's going to be an hour and a half. So yeah, we're playing it by ear. So 30 to 45 minutes, and then what I was going to suggest was that we take a quick break. There's going to be refreshments back here, and then we come back for those of you who still want to hang around and have a Q&A, and then share stories amongst yourselves. And if anybody wants to get up here and tell their story as well, fine, great. Anybody who would like to join in on the events that are going to be happening in the future, you get a hold of me. I'll give you the information later, and it'll be on the website. It'll be on the museum website as well. Let's see, what else?
And what's the general invitation? Like, how did you come to Cortes kind of thing? Is that what it would...
Yeah, the whole idea, so that's a great question, Isabel, and that's a great segue, because what happened was, Sherman and I have known each other for a few years. It's a long other story. But he was up on Easter Bluff one day when Jane and I went up for a hike, and we're chatting, and he starts telling me about his arrival story, how he discovered Cortes. And it actually goes even further back, like when you were talking earlier, we were chatting about when you came as a kid.
Or like
So,
meeting
yeah,
Katie and Bill too,
Yeah,
like
that's
the
right,
threads. Yeah.
So then he said, there's lots of stories on the island here, and if we don't somehow capture them, we're going to lose them,
Yeah.
So I thought, that's an interesting idea. It would be an interesting thing for the museum to do, because the museum has got artifacts that it's saving and preserving and sharing with the public, but stories are artifacts as well. How do we capture those? And then it occurred to me, well, why don't we do a speaker series? And so Sherman, I approached Sherman and said, hey, what do you think? You want to be the first? And he's like, yep. It's like, awesome. So this is auspicious. So essentially, it's how did you discover the island?
Yeah.
What make you decide this is going to be my home? And what keeps you here? And that's kind of it in a nutshell. So we've got that. Everybody know, well, I'll just tell you really quick. If you need to get up to go to the bathroom, it's right around the corner here, right behind the counter. So feel free to do that on your own, or wait till the break. I'm gonna look for some feedback on the event as well afterwards, because it's the first one, so I want to get some feedback on that. And we can do it either during the event or afterwards as well. And let's see now. Just a quick last thing. Anybody who's got cell phones, that includes me, turn the sound off. We're recording it, I mentioned that. Roy is also recording it. So does anybody here not want to have their voice recorded? Nobody's raising their hands, Roy, so we're good. Okay.
Same with pictures?
Same with images. What about images? Does anybody not want their image captured in any way, shape, or form? Okay, good. That's basically it. So, without further ado, Sherman, you're on.
Hey, everybody. Wow. So, yeah, I remember that day up on the bluff. Nice sunny day.
Yeah.
Kind of like today. Yeah, so for a long time, I had this thought in my head of, I had a picture, I guess, because I think I'm more visual than verbal. But I had this, through different stories and people I'd met when I first moved here, that their coming to Cortes was sometimes very funny, very random, many threads. You put all the threads together, you weave a story, kind of like a song. And in my mind, I pictured this, and I'm sure in this crowd or anywhere in Cortes it would be easy to put together, would be a book about this big. In up here, what I see is like this very cool kind of like leather, maybe it came from one of the goats you tanned or whatever, back and front, parchment pieces, kind of like you'd maybe discover it out of a Hobbit library. And it could be in the library. So when people come here in the summer, or people have been here a long time, they could write down, you could have some threads, why you came to Cortes, and the things that happened when you did come here, because everybody's got funny stories, sad stories, but like, what was your first ferry ride like when you got here, if you came by ferry? And what was the reason you came to Cortes? And I think it could be a really cool book just to keep the past, present, and future kind of all intertwined. So I'll try not to jump around too much, but with that thought in mind, I'm going to share a story before I get into my story of a friend that I met when I was building my house. And I thought it was kind of interesting. So one of the reasons I wanted to move here is I wanted to be like far, far, far away from bureaucracy and the wisdom of building inspectors. And so I found this place. And when I started building my house, I had this idea that I just read in a book and kind of randomly went there. And there was a woman that was living on the island named Sine. She lived at Stefano's place, where Abigail lives now, my neighbor. And she had was the only person I'd met that had ever built a straw bale structure. She was from Arizona. And we just met talking, and even, I'm going way back in time, I said to her, so what brought you to Cortes? So, and this is how random it can be coming here. And she said, well, I hadn't a clue where Cortes was. I was in Seattle, and I was walking through the Pike Street Market, which I'm sure lots of us have been there, and it was a nice day, and there was a guy playing guitar, and he was playing my favorite Bob Dylan song. And I dropped him a $10 bill, and back then $10, brought you more than a chocolate bar. And he looked at her and he said, you should go to Cortes. I'm not making this up, okay?
Not random at all.
Totally random, okay? I'm just trying to bring the thread together that's sometimes how we arrive. And she didn't even know where Cortes was. She was a teacher of autistic kids, had a good job in Seattle, but decided to go where this guy was probably playing The Times Are Changing or whatever. And she came, and she ended up in Stefano's little cabin that's on the property. And I said I wanted to build a straw house, and I had the framework up, and she helped me do it because she'd done it before, and she was here for 3 or 4 years. So that's kind of like where how did you get to Cortes and why you're here? That's how it can be way over here or way over there. Yeah, so back to all that. Sometimes when we arrive in places, we forget how we got there or why we came there, and we were brought by many different reasons. So when Brian approached me about this, I'd already forgotten the first time that I actually came here. And so when I was just finished grade 6 in a little town up in the North shoe swap called Solista, which I think is pretty much burnt to the ground right now. My dad was a teacher, and he had a school that, and I'm going back into the 70s here, that he was sort of transforming into an outdoor educational school without the school board knowing about it, public school. And he wanted to come to Strathcona Lodge, which I'm sure some of you have been to take edible plant and wilderness survival course so he could go back and teach his kids at the school. It was the elementary school. And at that time, I was that kind of student, which I'm sure, because we were all living on Cortes, we had, similar with this, but it was like, could you just keep him in English twice and not send him to math? Kind of. That was my scene, because I liked writing. And I had won this prize, back then you could put in a story and it would be go around your school board and maybe you got a prize or whatever. And he didn't really say much, but we packed up our old truck on the shoe swap and to the coast we came. I'm trying to keep this all in a thread. I remember that we camped in the truck at Stanley Park. I still remember that. And we ended up on Cortes because he was friends with the writer here, Gillian Douglas, and he wanted me to meet Gillian Douglas. So I'm just going to my first experience on Cortes. We came to Cortes from Quadra. We camped at the Spit, because you could camp at the Spit at that time. You know what I'm talking about. I caught my first salmon there. And we came across, and we camped at the gorge. And at that time, I think the gorge would have been in the hands of Tammy's parents. It was just a big field. No hot tub, just a big field. You could go outside, dig a hole, and have a fire. You couldn't do that around many places now. And we were camping, and when I think of what, like emotions and stuff that connect you to places, I just remember, because I grew up in the interior and I was very interested in wildlife and things like this, but I remember picking up some apples and walking out to an apple tree that was kind of, like it's summer, so most, they're kind of started but not full. And a black-tailed deer looked at me and I looked at the deer and it walked up and ate the apple out of my hand. And I'm 12. That's a pretty impressionable thing at 12, because where I grew up, white-tailed deer do not walk up to you and eat apples out of your hands for a good reason, right? And if I was to think of that thread, that was my first sort of emphatic kind of like, whoa. And when you had first approached me, I'd totally forgotten about that, right? I was like, oh, and I came to, blah, blah. And so here I am, like, I flip forward in time to I'm living on Main Island and I'm looking for land like a lot of young people, and it's like, even back there, it's like, I don't want to live here and it's way too expensive. And I kept looking and looking and looking. And we were tree planting by, we had a barge. Some people here would probably remember Roland Kutenbauer from the Gorge and his son Soren. Anyway, I worked with them, and we would do the coast with the boat and the barge, and we'd go from here to the Alaskan Panhandle. And we were doing contracts, and we were headed to Toba nights, and we got stormed out. So my routine was to go down to real estate offices and say, this is what I'm looking for. I want rural land. I don't want to live in a place where there's building inspectors. I'm looking for a creek that runs through the place, and I've just come out of a very desecrated forest management zone. I'd like to see a place where there's a creek with old growth around it. That's a pretty tall order these days. And I went into the real estate office in Camel River, and they gave me the sheet, and as some of you people know, there was the Raven lots out here, right? Where we walked through to that day. So we had a week off. I came to Cortes, and the real estate agent's name was Janice Pichet back then. And I showed her that and I said, can you take me for a tour of the Raven lumber lots? And already in my mind, Raven lumber, and like, oh God, because what they tell you, you don't know what's going on in the woods. If you're a tree planter, you see, pardon my language, you see right through the greenwash bullshit, okay? Because you're in it. But we walked in and I'm like, oh my God, there's still trees. There's old growth trees. There's a creek. And I'm going, they didn't cut this down. She said, yeah, you were looking for running water. This is a class 1 salmon stream. Once in a while you still find coho in Hanson Creek. There's a lot of blowdown in there because of the northwest winds are getting stronger, and there's a lot of root rots for the big fir. But it was like, sometimes you just put out a wish and the universe answers you, and you're walking through that wish and you don't quite believe it because it's too good. You know what I mean? So we're walking through and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, And back then land was affordable. So people that know me well, and I'm wearing this shirt so I don't go down a rabbit hole because I don't like, you can call it what you want, but when places get gentrified and the land prices go up, the young people that don't come from money are pretty much toast of having the dream that you got, as our generation got to live, okay? I hope I'm trying to remember this young friend of mine who said, don't go down a rabbit hole. But the way I see it, here's a metaphor, this big round thing. If the world was flat and it was a giant piece of pizza, I feel like my generation took 3 pieces. Okay? So I'm just going to infuse you. If we don't learn to give back, they don't get to share the dreams that you got to manifest. If we don't learn to give, and my dad, he taught me a lot of things because he was teaching wilderness survival in the 70s to schools, and he got in a lot of trouble from the school board for it. But basically his thing is like, test your comfort zone, challenge your belief system, because if you don't do these 2 things, not much is going to change. So end of that story. But I'm walking with Janice at the mouth of my driveway. Some of you people know where I live. Some drive by. Got a funny sign there because some of my friends just have a few dogs. And we're walking, and at the entrance of my place is the old logging road that went through. There was 120 acres on one side of Hanson Creek, divided on the other side. So there was lot 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. And then on the other side of the Squirrel Cove Road was 4, 3, 2, 1. So we're coming in through there, and I'm really loving the place that she's showing me because it's got everything. And for me to actually be able to sit in a real forest somewhat, and it's pretty healing. And we've walked through it. We've gone through 9, 8, 7, 6, and we're kind of into the wetlands. And I'm pretty excited, so I'm blathering away, kind of like people I would make fun of sometimes walking in the forest, absolutely. And Janice is walking with me, and she's excited because she knows this guy's going to buy this land for sure, okay? And does anybody remember when you could buy 10 acres for $80,000 these days? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what you guys are challenged with, right? Sorry, it's 800,000 now. Ding, okay. Anyway, we're walking through, and I'm so excited, and I'm just talking and talking. And we're right at some of you know the trail where I showed you where the beaver pond was, just on the edge there. And this guy just steps out, and he's in full camo gear. He's got a 30-30. And I can tell he's just like been about as far away from me as that pot, right? And he's just standing there like, oh my God, like, is this what's coming to Cortes? You gotta remember going back 32 years, right? And he just steps out with his gun, and he's just standing there, and he's got a kind of a smile on his face. And Janice says, oh, hi. So already I know that they kind of know each other, which is a big relief, okay? And he's just looking at me, and he's kind of playing with me a bit. And he's not really saying any words because you know how you can do that. You can wait for the person to engage and make a complete idiot out of themselves when they're already acting like an idiot. And he's just like this. and he's holding his gun. He said, wow, I really like to hunt back here. It's good. And I'm going, yeah, it's pretty nice back here. There's water, there's old growth forest. I mean, when I first moved there was a cougar den that's literally 100 yards from my house. Anyway, he's just looking at me and he goes, this place is going to change. I'm just letting you know. And he looked at me and we kind of did this thing, right? And he went, I think you should go to Haida Gwaii. I'm not making up these words, okay? And I'm looking at Jan and she's like, no. Yeah, I don't have any listings in Haida Gwaii, okay? And so we do this thing, and he literally steps backward. And this guy was a bush guy. There's not a lot left out there that, they read magazines and think they are, and they buy all the clothes from Value Village or wherever you get this stuff. But he's just disappeared. And I'm looking at Janice, and she's looking at me, and she goes, that's Rambo the preacher. Does anybody know from the Whaletown Church? I only saw him once. That's the only time I ever met him. And apparently, tell me if I'm wrong, I think that he did move to Haida Gwaii. Yeah, well, I mean, some of you people know him. I just know him from that one experience. I never saw him since. Ironically, I end up with the Whaletown old Hammond organ and the original Bible that's been in that church forever. But I would love to know the story of Rambo the preacher. I wish the book was already here so he could have written what he thought. And that was my first experience of finding my home. And but we came there. My cousin, who worked in a logging camp, gifted me this big 32-foot Bluebird bus that he used to bring into logging camps and stay in. And we set it up out there, and we just started the whole process of the back to the land dream that people, they read about it in the Mother Earth news and think it's all groovy and stuff, and then spend 2 winters with a baby on a bus, and you get your house built fast or not, and yeah. So there's some pictures with that.
Yeah, you want to transition to those
Yeah,
images right now?
yeah.
Here, let's just
Out of the dawn of past into the semi-present.
Yeah, I'm gonna get this thing. There we go.
Yeah, so anyway, one of the reasons I wanted to be far away from the building inspector crowd, because you would never get away with this in Camel River. And I had this idea of the straw bale house, and all I had was a book. And back in the day, there was a woman that used to come here, Elka Cole, part of the Mud Girls. They built some stuff at Linnea, and they did that really funky face and everything on Donna and Richard's big house, the place. So she gave me a drawing, and that's what I had. That's Ian Young digging, like just making a bit of a foundation. There's, one thing when you're working outside a lot is when I was tree planting, I used to travel with a trampoline for my daughter and a babysitter. I used to had to bring my daughter with me to work and stuff. And he's digging a hole for the trampoline there. And yeah, so I forget how this works, Mary. Oh yeah.
Why don't I go back to
Yeah.
the first one?
Yeah.
And then we'll just go in order.
I think, okay, so we go back to the cow and the cow and the van, and this was another, okay, right there. So the other thread I thought to this, outside of how you came to Cortes, here's a good one, because some of you have seen the photo of down at the gorge of the back in the day when Bert Hansen was running the ferry, and it looks like there's just a big wave, but there's a ferry behind it. You know that one? Okay. So what's your best ferry story? Oh, there's some good ones, hey? Back when it wasn't all like, that Vancouver knows what the weather is and you can't go. Because to his credit, I remember being with my daughter on all of days at the Harriet Bay Inn on Christmas Eve. So I'm going back like 23 years ago when Harriet Bay didn't have the electric fire. It had a real fireplace and there were couches, and it was the last ferry to Cortes, and people were just like, you can have the couch, I'll be on the floor, that kind of thing. And my daughter's looking at me and she's like, Santa Claus is coming down our chimney, not this chimney. No, I'm serious. You tell these stories to kids. I'm telling you a story. They're going to tell it back to you, right? And I'm like, oh my God, we could be like sleeping on the floor here. And Bert walked into the Harriet Bay thing and said, we're going. I don't care what they say. And we went. And that's my best ferry story. But so when I did first arrive, I was working with my brother milling wood for my house because he had a bandsaw mill set up. And I'll just add it to another ferry story. So I had this thing for like 25 years. I'm sorry I ever sold it. I sold it to buy insulation to finish my house. I still regret it. But it's about 9 feet long in the back, these old Chevy panels. I had the doors open. And this is when I first met Bert. Later, this was, yeah. Anyway, it's loaded with 2x6s. I've got the doors tied shut, not very well. I'm coming off the ferry. You know what it's like at really low tide. You know, you're behind the guy that's got 3 bicycles and his kids are screaming because the bicycle's getting bent sideways as they go off, right? Well, the rope broke and all the 2x8s slid out. I'm like the third person off, and the ferry, it's summer, it's busy. They didn't come right onto the ferry. They're kind of like wedged like between the truck and in the crevice. And Bert comes down, and excuse my language, and this is before my daughter's even born at this time, and he goes, "Oh my God, the fucking hippies are here." It's like, and honestly, Bert, like hippies on Cortes, wow, I've never heard of that before. But yeah, so there's, everybody's got their ferry story. I can remember a summer, I don't know how much I was coming back from the interior. It was summertime coming back, and we weren't far off the Whaletown dock, and there was a lot of walk-ons, and everybody was just marveling, as we all do when we first come here on the ferry, right? Standing out, and for whatever, I've never seen a humpback come so close into a bay, but a humpback came up, breached, and soaked everyone on the ferry. I mean, if those people could come and write in a book of their first ferry story, it'd be the whale, right? So these are some of the ideas. Yeah, lost the thread there. So, oh yeah, there they are. I'll just find them. So, anyway, just parallels. So, from winter days, it's like, oh God, let's just forget about the house and go to Mexico. And so I went with my wife at the time, just before Archie's born, and we came back, and he's like,
Oh, that's a cow.
I'm glad you guys are vegetarian, right? I just thought it was a funny picture to add, because you could blink your eyes, and if you went back in time, that could be Smelt Bay, right? Maybe with the cow, because I mean, I'm not pretending I'm a pioneer here, but I've heard the stories, as you would know, when horses were walking down. When's the last time you heard of horses going down the Gorge Hill? I mean, I would love to see a wagon that picked people up at the ferry and took the whole road and took 2 hours to get to Manson's. That's a great business, and they do it in Chemainus. So, yeah. Oh God. Okay. No, I'm hopeless with this stuff.
You want to go?
Oh yeah, those ones. Okay. So I'm just moving forward in time. One of the, I mean, our daughter was born here, but Linnea School was a big factor in drawing a lot of people here. It was an awesome place in its day. And the kids that got to go there, I mean, both schools were awesome, but my daughter sitting here, I give her credit for her art and everything, awesome teachers. Dana, later on we moved to Victoria's to go to high school, another awesome art teacher, and she's actually being able to make a living as an artist, which is not easy. But I met these people from Montana that rented the house at Hollyhock on the beach. It wasn't fancy then. And they came up while I was building the house, and they gifted me this wood-fired hot tub, which if you don't have hydro and water and all that stuff, you live next to a creek or whatever, you figure out pretty quick how to get water, so at least you can have a bath and maybe wash your clothes in it when you're done. But just different things. They came with that on a trailer. They had a lid on it. They traveled with 3 daughters in a Volvo, that's a bit of gear to go camping, and kayaks. They kept everything in there. They had 200 feet of poly in the bottom so they could have gravity feed if they camped at a creek. And They lived here for a year and a half, so their daughters could go to Linnea. And Craig went, he was just infatuated with driftwood because he lived in Montana. So they went back with a load of driftwood and left me the hot tub. Yeah. Yeah, so stories of Cortes.
Do you want to flip through a few more?
Yeah, sure. That one. Yeah. So, yeah, I was looking around here because I haven't been here in ages, and I was having some pretty good like chuckles with myself because when I first came here, I was, when I wasn't tree planting, I was swinging a hammer on the side, and Hubert and I used to laugh with each other about alternative buildings because he's a carpenter, and I was making jokes about what you couldn't do with a living roof, and he came to see me building my house and started laughing at me when I told him I was going to have a deck living roof with skylights on it. And then I saw that piece right there, and I thought, Hubert, I wish you're here right now because we'd have a good laugh with each other. Yeah. So, but this is the thing, when you actually can come to a place and you don't have to deal with the army of bureaucrats telling you what you can do and you can't do. Sorry, I'm not quite going down a rabbit hole with this stuff. But what you're doing is you're robbing the youth, okay, of what I would call serious life skills learning. And I'm speaking like this because my dad was doing this to me at 10, okay? But when you're able to do this, you learn things and you can appreciate doing things yourself. You're not going to get away with this in town. You can hardly get away with it on Cortes anymore. So, God, Brian, I'm hopeless. Which is this one? Oh, there. Oh, I did it.
There you go.
So, yeah. So, anyway, Elka gave me this drawing, and I proceeded with the drawing, not really blueprints. Probably some of you remember back in the day when Robbie Drydigger lived here with his backhoe. And Robbie he just didn't dig holes in your land and give you bills. He knew how to move land around. And suddenly my drawing there was a great big huge rock, and he looked at me and he said, Sherman, you can go through a hell of a lot of effort. This is before the post went up or anything. He did a rubble trench foundation like they do on castles in Europe, Castles have been around longer than cement, right? And he said, you can either move this rock or you can have a drop-down living room. And that's the beauty when you don't have to come in with the pre-approved plan and the blueprint and the da-da-da. You can go with the flow. That was way easier than blasting out a rock, wasn't it? And a lot more affordable. So, so that's, I'm just telling you my story of building. And yeah.
You mentioned you used tires.
Yeah.
There's an image that has
yeah.
some tires in it here.
Yeah. Where do we go? Oh, the other way, I think.
Jumping around, okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Eventually there.
So, yeah, it's kind of random.
Yeah, it's there we
There.
go.
So, anyway, so I had this book, and this guy had said, if you want a really solid, flexible foundation, and you don't want to drop 2/3 of your building thing on a cement thing that's damp and cold, which, on the West Coast, there's a lot of people with cement foundation basements, and it's like, why did I pour all that concrete when I could have just gone up, right? So he said, you build a rubble trench foundation. Here's chip rock, which I got from Robbie and Ann, 3 feet by 3 feet. He dug it all out, put it in. There's drain at the bottom. On top of it, he said, put crushed chip rock into the tires, put them on top. So I did all that, and
Forward.
I think I'm going into a building story now, but
Yeah, you are. That's all right.
anyway, these are my friends from Montana here.
You got to get back to this one at some point because that's
Yeah.
the free store.
Oh yeah, yeah. God, there's another. It's endless here. Just tell me when my time's up. So anyway, so these are all on pads. The tires went on one on top of this, and yeah, you can kind of see. And then I built the floor and brought the foundation to the floor, and there you can sort of have a sense of it. But a lot of people were like, Hubert and I used to have long conversations about this, but I see he's living with a living roof now himself because a group of the carpenters came to look, and you're just playing with each other, right? You're the newbie on the block. Everybody's been there. It's like, do you even know what you're doing? All that stuff, and some funny stuff. I mean, I can't, one of his stories is, are you sure if the deer don't get really hungry this winter, they're not going to eat your walls? This house, 35 years old. I mean, we don't have moose here. Okay, not yet. But yeah, so that was the idea, and I just went with it. The beauty is that when Raven logged this land that I lived on, I don't know what their machinery was, but there was huge pieces of Douglas fir left on the ground from me to you. So there was a guy here, he came in with his bandsaw, and we milled it up. And, I'm not going to go down a tunnel with how much wasted wood I've seen in my life with 30 years of tree planting, but it was good to utilize what was there. And then I worked part-time for the well driller here. And there was a guy here, I'm sure a lot of you remember him, Gunnar Hansen, okay? Yep. Anybody got a well that Gunnar Hansen witched? Yeah. So I kind of found it amusing because I was working for the well driller here part-time, and he said, I said, well, how are we going to, where do we drill? And he said, no problem, I'll bring Gunnar out. And Gunnar came out to my place, and we got talking, and I told him about when I used to work oil field, and if you're looking for, you didn't drill through on a seismic drill through a gas field, you'd take two pieces of metal, flagging things. Yeah, and they would cross. And he said, and I had, at that time, I had a cistern on the hill, and I was pumping water from the creek to the cistern, gravity feed. People told me that my family would get beaver fever from blah, blah, blah. Nobody got sick. I drank that creek water for years. Anyway, I'm walking along, and sure enough, it all works. And then we walk literally out to where I'm lucky that the best part of the logging road that Raven built was a logging road that I didn't have to pay somebody to make a logging road. It was already there. And literally walked to the front gate of my house and went, if you go down here 250 feet, you're going to hit an underground stream at about 12 gallons a minute. Wow. You could have a wheat field, okay? So Gunnar did that, and Tom was moving his rig to Twin Islands, and he needed a place to park it while whatever was coming at the log dump, and he left me his drilling rig there. I don't know what a well costs to drill these days, but somebody leaves you a drilling rig and you get to drill your own well. It's pretty nice. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know what else. Yeah. And that's where we hit water. I like Gunnar. And the threads of that are that he would be drilling out on some of these really expensive places, and they'd bring in the water guy from this guy and thousands of dollars, and he would go, yeah. And then he'd just phone Gunnar, and Gunnar would come out and tell him to drill here. And he said, yeah, that's where they wanted it. And there would always be water, So, and that's kind of what I ended up with. Yeah. Kind of a hobbit house. Okay, so there's a lot of people here that remember before we had a recycling center, free store thing. And there's a thread here I forgot, because before I came to Cortes, we were living on Main Island, and my wife at the time knew Dova very well because they did theater together on Main Island. I'm going back over 30 years. But when we came, when I finished the house, this is the bus my cousin gifted me that we brought out there. And I, having lived rural most of my life and way more bush than Cortes, I realized is every vehicle, and the old timers would know which holes and where vehicles are buried. You couldn't get them off the island, especially if you lived on Reed Island. And I'm looking at this bus, and I was like, okay, it's still a good bus. It's really well outfitted on the inside. And my neighbor at the time was in charge of the highways department. And he was living on a bus down near where Ben Fulton is. And for whatever reason, I had a conversation. I said, I'm finished the house, and I don't want to be stuck with a bus that I can't get out of there and a tree falls on it. You just got a big hunk of metal you can't get rid of. So he came and looked at it and loved it. I said, this is the deal. The bus is yours. You just got to get it out of here. So this is going to be something you can appreciate and you could only get away with in Cortes. So shows up with the backhoe. At this point, the rear wheels, as we all know with big vehicles left on land, that the brake drums rust together and you're not moving it anywhere except on the front tires. Hopefully those brake drums aren't rusted. So the front worked, the back didn't. So he came in with the highway backhoe and his friend, and he lifted up the back of the bus, but it was so heavy, the backhoe was doing this, had to go back and get some weights, which you can do with a backhoe to rectify the weight. Lifted up the bus, his friend sat at the steering wheel, came down my driveway, and if you know where I live, like it's right in the middle of the gorge hill, it's like, which way, and at that time they just leased the land to start the recycling center and stuff. And they did a right turn, you know, thank God there wasn't a double tandem gravel truck coming down at 100 miles an hour down the hill at that point. And they took it all the way to where the free store was and parked it. Well, there was nothing. I think Bill Friedel was just starting on the buildings. But, and then I came there one day and this was the sorting station, the old bus. Henry ended up with the motor because it was I forget, whatever, 450, it's the motor that Henry wanted up at the farm. And he's got his own issues with vehicles. But yeah, and it got all ported. I don't know where it went to eventually, but for a long time, it was kind of like sorting the stuff, you know, when you don't get to the recycling center for too long and you're not sure if you live in the recycling center. But it was also a bit of a free store. And so it kind of got repurposed. And
We don't have a set amount, we don't wanna exclude anybody. And, because it's so late in 2024, when you renew now, you get 2024 and 2025.
Double whammy.
All right, and if you didn't hear, please sign our guest book on the way out. All right, that's all I have to say.
thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
What year did you actually, was it when you were with the realtor that you looked at the property?
1993. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Some way, I just remember that. Janice lived in the house just along the gorge road below me. I don't know where she is now. Yeah, Victoria. She was a nice woman. And she was a person who would take you for a tour and not give you a bunch of BS. It was just her and Rambo. I would like to know more about this guy. I only met him once. It's the only time I ever saw him. But people went, "You met Rambo the preacher?" Who? I don't know. That's all. She just introduced. Yeah. So I'd love to hear somebody tell. I'd love to hear the history of this guy, because he was a character, and you know, like you don't meet, like you meet a lot of people that want to walk out and they buy their guns and their camo gear and they think they're wilderness people. This was the real thing. This guy, he literally, you know, we were walking by yakking away closer to me and you. We didn't even see him. And he just walked backwards and he was gone that fast. And I know he was just laughing all the way out. But the words that stuck with me were, it's like, you should be going to Haida Gwaii. So all I heard was like story, rumor, whatever, that did he go to Haida Gwaii?
I don't know.
But I would love to hear the story. Was he was the actual preacher at the Whaletown Church? I mean, this guy, oh, okay. Well, thanks for correcting me, because the last 30 years I thought he was the preacher of the Whaletown Church. So, it's like, this is how stories metaphor, right? Yeah, reinventing history. So, anyway.
But often they share those preachers and preacher goes around too.
There's not too many preachers like this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not too many preachers, period, but especially like.
Well, anyway. Yeah. Vivid memory. Yeah.
Thankfully, we only had one of a kind.
Pardon?
I said, thankfully, we only had one of a kind right now.
Yeah. I thought we just elected one in the States, didn't we? Oops. Anyway.
Yeah, so this is kind of it's informal, but we just thought maybe we'd do a bit of a Q&A bit. So if anybody has any questions of Sherman, like about his house, about challenges
Authenticity.
he's run into, or yeah, whatever.
I have a comment to Sherman.
Sure,
Sherman's
absolutely.
an old friend, but you'd be happy to know that the raspberries that Elk and I got from you
Yeah.
have replaced all the ones where we live in our garden.
Nice.
They're 9 feet tall, and I picked 100 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
100 raspberries.
Nice.
And there's more, but after that heavy rain, they're not.
Yeah.
But so fertile ground, and they were right in front of where your trampoline.
I know. Yeah.
Amazing.
What, correct me if I'm wrong, Dancing. What was your first experience on Cortes?
Oh, correct me.
Because I remember. Sorry.
Well, that's another story.
But I just remember when you and Elka came and
We'll
camped.
get you on the list.
Yeah. 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 You got some stories.
I would be okay with that. I never built here on my own property, but
But you came and camped for 2 weeks, you and Elka.
Oh, no, long before that.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
I'm not a long timer, but I came in the 90s. It
Yeah.
was a hollyhock workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not about owning land here.
No, no, no.
Why did you just
But
go
then
to
I got,
place and-
Yeah.
workshop-itis, right? You get workshop-itis at these places, you go, why am I having to get my life better? Why do I have to heal all the time? Can I actually just live my life for a little while and actually experience myself and not having to be Om Namani Padme Hum? And I love Om Namani Padme Hum, I love it. I just came back from Kirtan in the sanctuary.
Yeah.
But thank you for the ask, another time, but 9-foot raspberries from his place.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding, 9 feet.
But to keep the story with the story, those raspberry plants originally came from my brother's ranch on Ruby Slipper Ranch on Denman to my place, to your place. Raspberries just keep on going.
2016 I got them from you.
Yeah.
We're talking 8 years, a second crop.
Well, if
This
you have
year.
any, if you have any spare, we're just about to plant some raspberries.
All right.
They're colonizers. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, all the other ones on that huge garden, 6,000 square feet, it's a garden, right?
Hmm.
They're all gone. But
Yeah.
yours are just like,
Whoa.
Yeah.
And they're red or yellow?
oh, they're red.
Oh, yeah.
And anyways, enough about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions?
I'd love to see more of your beautiful house.
You can just do a right turn at the Barking Dog Retreat sign and I'll take you for a tour. You know, one picture is worth 1,000 words. Oddly enough, when you're building a house, you don't get a lot of, those are all the pictures I have building the house, what you saw there.
I have some pictures of the inside.
Sure, you do that. I don't, you're bad, yeah.
Take a few
Oh, you
extra-
did? Oh, good,
Yeah, I
okay.
took a few extra
Yeah,
shots when I was
okay.
there. Let's just see.
Yeah.
No. Well, I'm just zipping through
Yeah.
right to the very.
You know, I've worked on cookie cutter houses
I
for
see.
contractors in Campbell River,
Yeah.
and it's such garbage. And it's all past. Like, I don't have a lot of time of day for the bureaucracy that keeps all this stuff rolling. Because anyway,
Sorry, I didn't.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's
There's none of
one. But no, I thought I had some other pictures on there, but not. I don't
Well,
have one.
you know that thing better than I do. But, or just click it through? Yeah, that's kind of, well, we'll just go, I guess we'll get back to the beginning. Anyway, yeah, it's all straw bale. No, there's some frame stuff. Because where I grew up on the shoe swap, my dad was kind of the same way. We had a house that was built in 1916. You know, there's a certain point you realize you should have just run a D6 through the house and started over. But he was like me. It's like, oh, I'm going to turn this into an English-style Tudor mansion. Man, I don't know. It was a big old house. My wife at the time, her family were homesteaders on the shoe swap, and I was just back in Squilax where I grew up recently this summer, and I went to the Chase Museum because I like museums, and there was a picture of the house. It's the oldest house still standing on the shoe swap. They had big fires there. We were spared the fire there. So I learned the plaster kind of stuff. So I've done it some around the island. You can take a frame house and work with hardware cloth and out of a standard building, and you can curve corners and put whatever you want in. So so it's not the upstairs is frame, and yeah, it's like 50-50 frame straw bale. But the straw bale, cool in the summer, warm in the winter, and 32 years old, and I was just curious one day, so I just drilled a great big hole in the wall. No mold, nothing. Well, you can just drill a hole in the wall and come back and you put the plaster on. It's like it was never there, right?
Your
So,
inside pictures didn't make it in, I guess, huh?
I guess they didn't.
well, I just see what's. Yeah, I don't.
Oh,
Oh, that's an old inside picture.
yeah, it's one.
Yeah.
That's one of yours.
That's when we were living. When we just moved out of the living room and incorporated the rest of the house.
That's
It's like you move out of the bus and you're in the living room. It's like, yeah. Yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there are.
No, I guess I didn't. No, I thought I was
Anyway,
going to, but
well,
then-
that's outside finished.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you know, because a lot of is we do at least able to build our own places here without being told what, how, when, or why. But my theory is West Coast build your roof strong, but roofs are expensive. If you're going to build a roof, make duality. So a very low pitch, super strong, 4 foot by 4 foot window in the upper loft. You can come out here. You can have a garden the deer aren't going to touch. Not yet. They will learn to climb ladders eventually, I'm sure. But I just for myself, it's because the creek is behind me and you have all this oak growth. But you can, you know, my daughter has her friends come, travelers and stuff. I mean, they lived out there for a summer on a tent. But you can hear the creek, and but to be able to grow things on your roof, in Europe in the big box stores, you don't have no choice, because there's more to it. There's a lot of runoff. When there's a serious amount of runoff, let's not kid ourselves. Every car we drive that's petrol fueled is putting down a layer. If you're on a motorcycle in the rain, you know how much oil is going into the road. But these ways, the water's filtered a lot. And now even the box stores in Camel River, Walmart, all those places, they use pond liner for a roof because, like Hubert says in his thing there, moss can be your friend. But you can see here these little lines. I did this as a living roof, and then I was in a hurry because it was October and the roof wasn't finished. I did geroid on these hip roofs, and I regret it. So I've covered the geroid shingles with the EPDM. I just haven't made it a living roof. But what happens with geroid roofs on the West Coast, as soon as they start getting moss under them, the shingles start to lift. And I wouldn't even want to know about how many hundreds of thousands of pounds of geroid shingles. Where do you think they go? Into the landfill. So if you make a roof that's friendly with the environment, it's a no-brainer, right? It's like Kigley holes in the shoe swap, right? Native pit houses. Yeah.
Are you talking about like asphalt shingle?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a racket because I've worked for roofers, you know, Calgary. They can almost predict when the hail comes and everything gets replaced by insurance. But I've seen landfill sites that are just mountains of geroid shingles. It doesn't have to be that way. Yeah.
There's another question.
How many years did you have to work as a tree planter to be able to afford the 80,000?
Repeat the question.
Yeah. How many years did you have to work as a tree planter to afford the 80,000?
That's for the record here, the video. Yeah, so go ahead.
Okay, so I'd sort of been backpacking around the planet for about 5 years. I came back to Canada when I was 27, and the old connections, like I'd worked in a logging camp when I was 18 and told me that BC was in a recession. okay? So I hadn't planted a single tree at that point. I was used to like the oil field, the logging camp, the big cash kind of thing. There was no work. I ended up picking fruit. I went tree planting. By the time I was 32 on Main Island, we were looking for land and I'd managed to save 40,000 planting trees, which is what, 1% of a down payment now. But I saved, when I came and bought the land from Janice, that's why I wanted raw land. It was harder then because raw land, I don't know what it is now, but you had to have 50% to put down. So I had 50%. That was one of the more expensive Raven lots, 80,000, which is somebody's property taxes these days. But yeah, so question answered. It took me 5 years to save half, and then I planted and built. I never borrowed. I did, because when you borrow, then you're in bed with the banks and the insurance company, blah, blah. I've lived here 30 years, I don't deal insurance. I built this house for less than 60,000. A lot of people would spend that in 20 years just on insurance. So, and they're not going to insure a straw bale house. So, well, I did have insurance when I rented it out, but they insured it so easily, and then I started actually researching the insurance company. Sorry, I wore the shirt for a reason, but the insurance companies and the banks are all in bed together. Just, we all know that. You get what you're willing to put up with. Yeah. So it took me 5 years to save half, and I pulled out a tree planting 2 years ago after a pretty bad fall and kind of woke up, and then I rented some spots out of my land to share, and I retired, kind of, whatever that's supposed to look like. Yeah, so the house, I didn't borrow. I didn't really have to spend a lot. If I spent a lot of money, it was, the most amount of money I would have spent was paying people to mill wood, because I didn't have my own bandsaw. My neighbor's a miller. So I was lucky that all the wood outside of the sheeting came from the land. The straw bales came out of Black Creek for $5 each, which I don't know what a bale of straw is now. If we have chickens, they're probably like $25.
I just spent 24. Sure.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous, right? You tell that to some of the old farmers and they just laugh. But I never, I just never borrowed to do anything. If I ran out of money, I ran out of money. My biggest regret was selling my old panel truck, because it was late October and I didn't have enough money to put the insulation in the roof. So I sold the truck for $800, and it used to sit outside of Black Creek auto wrecking, haunting me every time I drove to Courtenay. And then later I got a phone call from some guy in California that saw that. I said, I don't care what it costs, I'll come and buy it. It's like, sorry, it's gone. It was $800, and he just laughed at me on the phone. Anyway, we all have those stories. Yeah. But yeah, I just never went into debt for stuff. I didn't buy ahead. I'm not saying you can do that now because everything's so expensive.
Yeah.
And then you got a raft of people telling you can't even work with your own wood because,
The reason I'm asking is because I was on Formby in '95.
yeah.
When people that were tree planting
Yeah.
could afford.
Yes.
And I was just wondering how long it took you to get the 50%, because since '96 basically is not the same. Like
No, it's not.
money.
No,
The money's not there like it used to be.
there were some people here that are tree planters. Money is a relative thing. I know lots of people want to tell you about all their best days and they made $1,000 a day and they drive away in an old van with beer cans rolling around and they never have any money. It's like money is how you choose to spend it. And if you have, I think at a certain point in your life, if you have an objective, like you got a young kid in a half-built house, you're not like gonna lay down your season's wages going to music festivals. You're gonna finish your house, or not. You could see both sides. Yeah. But 5 years. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's closing in on almost 3:30, and if there's no other, is there any other quick questions or? Okay, well, I want to thank you all for coming and participating.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sherman.
Yeah. Thanks.